All right, so let's continue with today's topic, where we will talk about condition scripts and global variables. Right, so yesterday we saw extracting the data from SAP and writing that into a flat file and a database table simultaneously. And today we'll look at condition scripts and global variables. Before we go to condition scripts and global variables, any questions? Any questions on the topics that we covered so far? Please let me know so that we can discuss on that and continue with the topic. All right, so we will look at condition scripts and global variables, why we need them. See, we will be looking at a combination of things. We just, if I have to go like this, I can go like talk about conditions for some time and then talk about scripts and global variables separately, but that will not make any sense because we are going to look at a combination of the tool because that is the best way how we can utilize this one, right? So we need to know and understand how, when, and where we will use the combination of these objects or these options within data services so that we can start working on this tool with a lot of ease, right? So I'll be combining the most possible events or most possible objects or possible scenarios or transformations so that we get to know which transformation precedes what and which transformation succeeds what transformation. Right, so because there are few transformations that you should use after some transformation and some are independent transformations. So we can learn about them when we start learning the tool in a combined mechanism. So we will start complicating our knowledge transfer or knowledge gain a little more from this session. We'll try to look at a bit more complex scenarios. So let us say I have a job wherein I have to extract some 10 tables. So this is my extraction. This is the scenario we are looking at. And then we will look at a live example for this one. And then I have to do a validation on my job. And then I have to do a loading onto my target system. Right, so this data flow is to do an extraction, this data flow is to do a validation, and this data flow is to load into my target system. And there is a strict concern from the data owner saying that unless and until you validate the entire data, and unless and until you have a confirmed data set which is approved, you should not load the data into the target system. Right, so that is, that is a generic good question or request from the customers that we generally get. So what we need to do is, I need to control this job, right? Let us say I just need to complete the extraction once and hold the job, then perform the validation, hold it, and then perform the loading, right? So I want to run the same job in bits and pieces, right? I want to run this one first, and every time I run my job, I don't want to extract the data because which is already extracted. It's a one-time job, right? It is already extracted, and I don't want this data set to run every time, and it's a lot of waste of time, I could say. So you extracted the data, you staged it, and then you want to perform validations. And when you want to perform a validation, you don't want to initiate with the extraction. You just want to go and say that just execute validation, just execute loading, just execute extraction. So you can have a control on your job execution with the help of condition scripts and global variables, right? So this is a combination of three different scenarios that we'll be using in common. And if you look at any jobs that are already in place, like any projects, or even you go and look at the SAP BPDM's best practices for data migration, every job is built on this scenario, right? They will build the entire job, and on that job, they will give you a controlled execution, right? So that is what we will be achieving. I request you, someone is not on mute, so just in case if you are not, can you please get onto the mute so that we will avoid some background noises. If you have any question, you can just ping me or you can just go ahead and ask the question. So with this condition scripts and global variables, we will be achieving the control execution of the job, which means you will have a control over which block of your code that you want to execute. Right? So condition is nothing but an if then else statement. So if your condition is valid, then block 1 will get executed. If your condition is invalid, then it goes to the next block, or if it is satisfied, it will get the first part, or it will go and execute the else part. Right? It's a simple if then else statement, condition. Then script is a place where we define global variables. Right. So remember the fundamentals that we learned from C++ in our college. There's a very famous author, Balaguru Swami. Right. So when we talk about the variables, we first create the variables and then we initialize or declare a value for the variables, and then we will call the variables across the job. Right. So this is what we will be looking at, the global variables, right? So we will see how we create global and local variables, how do you define them, and how do we call them in the conditional part of the job so that we can achieve our controlled execution of the job. So for this, I'm going to build marc and mard extracts as well, and we will try to see a join. How do we join two different tables? So along with I'll get to that, Rehan. So along with condition scripts, global variables, we'll also see how we will join two different tables or three different tables. Now there is a question from Rehan. In what scenarios we create global variables? Any example? Right. So when you, okay, let me put it this way. Now you're working on a job, right? And your job has some source path. Right. So, and your job is extracting the data from 15 different files and it is writing into another 20 different files. Right. These are our source flat files and these are our target flat files. So for every source file, I have to go and manually define the path. Right. So it is like C:, inbound, dir, and so on for my file. So every 15 files I have to go and define this. So that's not a problem. But going forward, if you want to move your code from your development to a quality system or to a mock system or to a production system, you need to make sure that you have to go and change everywhere all your source paths and your target paths. So instead of using these things, you can just define one single global variable saying that $G_ in path. Right, and you can assign this global variable to this path so that everywhere instead of calling this value, you can directly pass a global variable. So if you want to change this value, there is no need for you to go and change in 15 source files and 20 target files. You can just change in one single place, that is called a script. So types of variables: global and local. Right, global is something that is defined at the job level, and you can call this global variable across the job. From the beginning of the job till end of the job, you can call it anywhere. Local variables are generally defined within your data flows. Right, so let us say you are working on three different data flows: plant A, and second one has separate logic for plant B, and third one has separate logic for plant C. And since they are a plant level information, you have the common values, but the logic might differ because they are present in different geographical location. So in those cases, you go and define a local variable saying that plant info, and you pass a value for this one, and that will be called within that data flow only. it will not be called outside the data flow because you're defining that within a data flow as a local variable. And the same thing can be, created for this and for this also, and you can pass separate values like plant info for data flow A has value A, and this one has B, and this one has C. Right? For the same local variable, you can pass different values because you are creating them as a local variable for that particular data flow. But if you are trying to create a global variable, you can create that at a job level and you can call it across the job. Right? Did I answer your question, Rehan? All right, yeah, Rehan, if you have any questions, you can go ahead and ping me on the chat. All right, so we will continue looking into this, how to create this global variables, conditions, and script. Yes, but when can we? Yes, but when we can create global variables, then why local variables? Yeah, that is quite a common question, Rehan. So when you are creating a global variable, right? So there is no need for you to go and define some local variables. But when you are working on a complex scenario, right? So you have to get some. So if you look at the simple coding languages that we do, we define x is equal to 1, then do some calculations and then get other value from that value and map it to x, and then once that loop is done, you go and say x is equal to x plus 1, and you apply a condition saying that x is repeat this loop till x is equal to less than or equal to 20. So these kind of scenarios, you require a local variable, but when you are creating a global variable, there is no need for you to if you are trying to pass the same value across the job, so there is no need for you to create your global variable, create your local variable and pass the same value again and again. It depends on the scenario. If you are working on a simple job, you define some source path, target path, then there is no need for you to create a local variable every time. You can just go with the global variable. But when you are trying to create something like, at every data flow level you want to capture some different logic, then you can go ahead and use your local variables. That you can get good hands on it as you go ahead and proceed working on it, right? So look at the current screen. This is your certification question and the interview question. So when you try to log on to your local repository, sometimes you end up seeing this screen, right? If you continue, you may corrupt your repository. So what is this warning all about? Which says that the user Rakesh, who logged in previously, did not log off, or he's still connected to the system, right? Generally what we do, we go to the right top corner of the window and click on the cross mark, which closes the system. So that's general practice that we do, because the way we close our Internet Explorers, right, we go ahead and close your BODS designer as well, right? You don't log off properly. So in that case, what it will show is, this is saying that Rakesh I is already logged into the system, and there might be some unsaved activities or these things. Now if you go and reset user, what it will do is, it will remove Rakesh I from the system and reset me as a current user, which means if there are some things that are unsaved by my previous logon, they will be lost. So if you click on continue, you continue to log into the repository till and the other person will not be kicked off, but you will give him some time to save his work and get out of the system, right? But when you see the screen with some other ID, you just make sure that you ping them and ask them that, are they doing something on this local repository and can you log on? Because generally, we give, as an administrators, we give an access to those people in such a way that, development local repository, everybody will have a full access, and, I can log into others repository and get a piece of work that I need. But if you have that kind of privileges, you just need to make sure that nobody is logged in and they did an improper log off. So if I go and, so let us say there is a user called as Rehan logged into the repository, and if I go and reset user, so Rehan will be kicked out of the system and Rakesh will be made as a current user on the system. So if Rehan has something that is unsaved, that will be lost. So those are the three options: reset user, continue, and exit. So if you click on exit, you'll get out of that logon window. You'll not log into the system. So a possible interview question. Now let us go ahead and look, create a job. So I'm creating a job and I'm calling this job as job underscore condition, script, and global variables. I'm just giving the name, job, condition, scripts, and global variables. Now if you go ahead and look at where we can find the conditions, scripts, and one second guys. Alright, so where we can find conditions, scripts, and global variables, right? So if you look at your data services screen, once you create your job, where can we find conditionals? Conditional is nothing but an if-then-else statement. And once you create the job, on the right-hand side tool palette, you will find this option called as conditional. Right, put your mouse on that one and you will see this one. Click on that one and click back on the window, and this is conditional, right? Conditional underscore Mara. Then I'll go ahead and create another 3 more conditionals. Conditional Marcy, conditional join. Right, so these are my 3 conditionals, and these also come along with your connectors, which will tell which has to execute first and which has to execute second if you're not passing any control parameters on the job, right? Then these are my conditionals. If you go and open this conditional, you will see an if, then, and else statement. If a condition is satisfied, then go and execute the then part. If it is not satisfied, then you can go and execute the else part. Right, and then it goes to the next one, and in this again it is an if then else statement. If the condition is satisfied, it will go and execute the then part. If not, it will go and execute the else part. So this is about the conditionals, right? The second one is script. So it is available on the right hand side tool palette. This is the only place where you can find a script. So click on it and click back on the window. So generally when you are defining or initiating any values for the global variables, you do that at the beginning of your code. So place the script in the beginning of the code. Yeah, Rehan, I'll just get to that one. Can you put any example on it and run? Yeah, I'll get to that one. Just give me a second. Let me complete the frame and then I'll get to that one. Right, now this is my script, and you can rename the script as ser underscore initial, right, where you go and initialize the values connected. Right, so this is my script. Script is nothing but a notepad where you can go and write some SQL statements and they will be executed. Right, you can use the print function. Right, these are the built-in functions: print, SQL, then SQL push down. Right, so you can use all these built-in functions. We'll look at them a little later. So this is nothing but a notepad where you can write something, and it's kind of SQL notepad or SQL window where you write something and that the system will run it, right? And next one is global variables. So as I told you, the global variables can be created at the job level. So select the job and go to tools, and you will see the variables, right? So you can go to, you can even select the condition and go to tools, and you'll be in a position to see the variables, but you'll not be able to create a global variable. So to create a global variable, select the job, make sure you select it, and then go to tools, and then go to variables, or you can select the job, and here you'll see a shortcut available on the tools menu bar where you can click on this, and this will open a pop-up window which is called as variables and parameters. Right, so we'll get to the parameters a bit later. right? I'm just tagging it to my right side screen so that it will be convenient for me to work. If you're convenient to put it in the bottom screen, you can. So you can minimize this and maximize this as per your requirement, right? When you want to use it, you can maximize it or just minimize it. So there you see something in the green color, that is variables, and orange color is global variables, right? So there is a naming standard for this. When you create a local or a global variable, you need to follow these naming conventions. So select the global variable, right click and say insert. So every variable that starts with a dollar symbol, right? So even if you go and create a local variable, create with a dollar symbol. So to differentiate between your local and global variables, you need to follow a proper naming convention. So double click on this one. So you cannot directly go and right click and create that one. You need to create, insert a global variable, and then it will be inserted like this. There is no option that you select it, right click, and there is no something like create. So just insert and it will be inserted. Now double click on this, and this is where you go and change it. So single dollar is for a variable. So GV is for global variables, and I'll call it as Mara, and take this as varchar and its length as 1. Then I'll go and create subsequent global variables. Insert, double click, $GV underscore marc, varchar 1. Then the third one, $GV underscore mard, varchar 1. So I created 3 global variables, right, and gave them a data type of varchar and length is equal to 1, because I'm going to pass values y or n for this, so that if it is y, it will get executed. If it is not y, then it will not get executed, right? So these are my global variables. So the fundamentals of any programming language: create a variable, initialize a variable, and call the variable. So we created these variables now. Now next we will go and initialize it, which means we will assign a default value for those global variables, which we will be doing in the script. So when you are creating a global variable, you can give it a default value in the same screen itself, right? I'll show you the difference. I'm just giving it for Mara. I'm not giving it for any other global variables. Now you go to the script, and in the script, if you use a hashtag, which means it is a comment, right? You can just type anything by giving comments. I have a habit of giving 2 hashes, right? Declaring the global variables, right? It is very important for you to give a description of whatever activity that you are trying to do, so that when you hand over the code to customers, or you move to other project and hand over the code to your team member, then it will be easy for you, not for him, but it will be easy for you, that you don't end up giving multiple KTs, right? Multiple KTs is one of the recent fashion that is happening across, and you have to tell the same thing 100 times, and after that they will come and say, let us have a reverse KT on this. This is very, very painful, because you have some other work to complete. Again, you have to go and explain the same story to them. But if you do a comment or annotations on your code, you can ask them, go and look at the code. If you don't understand, come and ask me that, so that I can explain, right? So it saves your time, and it is a best practice. Please follow it. And whenever you do some changes on the code, right, you can mention a comment saying that CR 12,000, you added one more segment, right? You can just give a comment and say that changed on 5/12/15, right? You just give a date and a time saying that, and you can also put a comment saying that done by Rakesh, right? So this is actually a proper documentation process for your jobs, right? So now if you type a dollar symbol, it will show you all the global variables that are present in your system at the job level. This is not your repository level. Global variables are just limited to your job level. If you want to create something at a repository level and you want all your jobs to utilize them, then you go for parameters. We'll get to the parameters in detail a little later, but global variables are only at a job level, so don't get confused with this. So I am defining initial value of y followed by a semicolon, and then $g v underscore marc is equal to y semicolon, and then I'm keeping them in single quotes, so just in case if the screen is not showing it properly. So $gv underscore mard is equal to y and a semicolon. Right? Now you created the global variables, you initialize the global variables, now you can call the global variables across the job. Right? Now this is where you call the global variables in the conditional. Now you go and type here $gv underscore Mara is equal to y. So this is my condition. If my global variable is equal to y, then execute a data flow. If not, go and execute something else. Right? So this is my conditional. So this is simple if then else statement. Right here I'll go and say if $gv underscore marc is equal to y. So this is a marc segment, so I'm giving a conditional marc here. And then the third one is join. Okay, I guess I created it as mardi. Okay, let's use this mardi, or let's rename it. You can rename your global variables, not a problem. This one is, I'll call this as $gv underscore join. Okay, and now make sure wherever you initialize it, you go and change it. $gv underscore join is equal to y. Now go to the conditional join and give the value $gv underscore join is equal to y. So in this screen it will not prompt, and there is no need for you to give a semicolon here. This is just a conditional. If this is equal to y, then it will be executed. Now we already have a Mara Dataflow. Right, I told about the reusability. Right, this is ECC DB extract, where exactly I extracted the data from. Double click on that to open that one, and this is where we exactly extracted the data from the Mara table. And right, one second, a little obsessed with data services, so I just can't handle those curved lines, or if it is not in a straight line. So that's a little obsession that you get with the tool once you start working with it for quite a long time. Alright, so this is a data flow which is extracting the data from Mara and staging it into the stage Mara table. So I want to reuse it. So there are two ways in which you can reuse this one. First one is go to your job, go to the conditional Mara. You can select this one and drag and drop this one into your then part. Alright, so you can reuse this data flow in any number of jobs, any number of times. Right, you just, because it is acting as an independent object, so you save it in one job and you call it across the job. But there is a small problem with this one. If you want to do some changes specific to this job, they will be affecting the other jobs as well, because this is the same data flow that is used in multiple jobs. This is one-to-many relation, right? You go and change in the source, it will get affected in all the targets that it is used, right? So if you want to use most of it and you want to further go and do the changes and you still don't want it to be affected in the other job, there is another way too. So to show that one, let me go ahead and delete this one here, right? And if you go to the actual job, this is the actual job, right, where ECC DBFFEXT, so you'll find this data flow, you open that one and your flat file is gone, right? So you cannot do changes in one job and expect the other job not to be affected. So if you are using the same data flow in multiple jobs and you're doing some changes on that data flow, obviously all the jobs will be affected. And just in case if you delete something by mistake without saving, just right click on the system and you will see something called as recover last deleted. Click on that one and your whatever the object that you deleted will be present on your screen. You can just connect it and save it. That is one best option with data services, I can say. Now, how do you reuse this one? Right, you have a requirement to do some changes on that one, but it is already there and you need to use 85% of it or 90% of it. So there is no need for you to go and create another data flow right from the scratch. But what you can do is you can select your data flow, right click, and there is an option called as replicate. Right, go and click on replicate and it will create a copy of this data flow. Right, now you can rename this one to df underscore Mara as you want, and you can drag it into your job. Now go into this data flow, delete this, now save it confidently. You want to cross check the other job, click on the other job, go to its data flow, you'll still have your flat file. Go to your current job, open this one, you'll not have the flat file, right? So this is where we can utilize 90% of the work that is already available, and for your job, if you have to do a little more customization by, let us say, adding few more columns, right? You can drag and drop them, or you want to apply some additional where conditions, and you can do anything. But there's no need for you to do something from the scratch when it is available on the system. If you want to reuse that one, you can go ahead and replicate your existing objects, your data flows, right click and replicate that one. You will get a copy of that data flow with copy underscore one underscore the existing data flow name. You just need to rename it and call it into your other job and use it. Alright, next in the else part, I am giving a script and I will call this as script underscore print. So this is just simple script that I am using to print a statement saying that print Mara not executed. So this is all the beautification that you can do on the job, right? If you want to say that Mara is executed and then it should go for this one, add another script here. You can call this as right. Right, you can do all these things. You can even send email notifications, which we'll be looking at a little later. So you can just use this print statements across your code to just tell like what is done and what is not done. Okay, so I'll just copy this one so that I can just do a quick paste on the other one and connect this, because this has to be executed only after your Mara is done. Then now look at this one. If Mara conditional is equal to y, then it will go and execute this one, and after that it will print a statement that Mara is completed. If it is not equal to y, which means this will be compared with your print statement is like a printf function. Yes, Chandra. So this will go and look at your script, and if your script value and the value that you gave in the condition is exactly the same, that block will be executed. If not, that block will be skipped. Now we have to do a job for Marcy, so we don't have the Marcy table. I need to import one. So go to your SAP data store, select, right click and do a search, or you can do an import by name. Go and select external data and give the table name as MARC. Click on search. This will take a few seconds. or you can just press enter, which will take you to the search. This might take a few seconds. Alright, so you'll see the list, and this is plant level information. You can identify that properly with the help of the description, the table description. Select that, right click and import. And once it is imported, you can go ahead and create your data flow. A few seconds. Alright, so it is imported. Now you can just go and close this one and create a new data flow. Now you are creating a data flow within a conditional. Earlier we created a data flow within the job. Now we are going to create that within a conditional. df underscore marc. Open this one. Select the marc table, drag and drop it. By default, SAP tables are source tables. Use a query transformation to apply row level and column level filters. So click on the query on the tool palette, click back on the window and say qt underscore ext. Connect it with your marc. Open this and select the required information. So material number, plant, maintenance, flag for deletion, and indicators. So you can select all these columns, drag and drop them to the right hand side. You need to use a little more strength, I guess. And you can apply a condition saying that where LVORM is not equal to X, and if you want to add some more additional columns, you can do this EK group, purchasing group, then MRP controller. Right, so that's enough. We just picked some columns and applied a where condition. So that is a column level filter and row level filter. Now you can call this as stage marc. Right, go and save that in your target data store. Click on OK. Connect. Now just save this job and your marc table will be saved. and it will have some metadata, though it's not run, it doesn't have any records on that one, it's just the metadata. Now you can go to the third conditional, and even before running the job you can go ahead and create your data flow. So just you save it and the metadata will be saved. So df underscore join. Now here I'm going to join two different tables. One is stage Mara and the second one is stage Marcy. So you select these two tables from your target data store, drag and drop them, and by default these are the template tables, right? So template tables, if you're trying to reuse a template table, it will be your source table. When you are creating a template table from the right hand side tool palette, it will be your target table. So this is an interview question, and don't get confused. Whenever you are creating a template table, it will be your target. Whenever you are reusing your template table, it will be your source, right? So drag and drop them, and now you want to join these two tables with a condition material number from Mara is equal to material number from RC. Connect both your tables to your query transformation, rename it to qt underscore join, and then create a target table called as materials underscore stage. Save that in your target data store. Connect with your query transformation. Now this is a simple join condition between two tables. Select required fields from table A and required fields from table B, where table A dot material number is equal to table B dot material number. So let me go and select the required columns from table A, map to output, and then the required columns from table B. There's no need to select the material number because it is already available in Mara, but I just renamed it, so not a problem. Map to output. See, two columns you see an underscore 1. The reason is the same name column is already available here. So this is an automatic thing that is done by the system to avoid some syntax errors. So if you're trying to re-add the columns, you can identify them with underscore 1. So if you feel that you are adding them by mistake, you can go and select them and delete them. Now I did the first part of my select statement. Select fields 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 from table A, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 from table B, and I had to give a where condition saying that where material number, where material number from table A is equal to my material number from table B. Right? It is as simple as such. Right? You just need to drag and drop them and give a equal symbol and validate this to see if there are any errors. No errors found. It's a good practice to validate each and every step once you complete that. Now you save your job. Okay, now your job is ready. Just go back to the main job level, right, and validate the entire job by clicking on validate all to see if there are any syntax errors, right? So if you don't find any syntax errors, then the best part is like you have to go and run the job. So you know how to run the job. Select the job, right click and execute it. So if you go and click on execute, okay, it wants to save. So you will see something called as global variables. Now for Mara you will see Y, and for the remaining Marcy and join you don't see any values because we haven't given them any initial values when we are creating it, and for Mara we gave this one. So these values, if you want to see them in the properties window, right here in the properties window or in the execution window, you can go ahead and change the values here if you want, right? You can do this. This is an editable window where you can go and change the values, right? If you don't want to do any changes on this, initial parameter screen or execution parameter screen, you just go and delete this, click on OK, and now you go and execute your job, go to the global variables, and you will not see the values. So that is, if you create them at the variables window, they will be reflected here. If you don't create them, they will not be here. So when you execute a job, it will go and check if there are any default values given to these variables first in this screen, or if it is right, whatever is given in the variables and parameters window, you'll see the same values here. So this will be the first priority, and if you haven't given anything, then it will go to the next part, which is scripts, and there it will check for the values. Right, so this is the first option where the system will go check this one or the job execution properties window. Both are one and the same, and if you don't give any values here, then this is the second preference that the system will take. Right, so now in my job I already executed Mara. Right, Mara is already done, and the data is present in Mara. Okay, I guess some connectivity issue. Right, let us run one by one. So let us say first I want to run only Mara, and then I want to run Marcy, and then I want to run join separately. The same job, but I want to execute this part first, complete the job, then skip this part and execute only this part, complete this job, and then go to the last condition. Alright, so now let us say execute, or even before that you can go to the script and set these global variables for Marcy and join as no. So now here it is n, and in the conditional it is y, which is a mismatch. So it will not go to the then part, it will go to the else part, and since else part has nothing, it will just go to the next conditional. Alright, so now select your job and run it. Now it will go and run. See, it picked Mara Dataflow as the first one, and it will run the Mara Dataflow and push the data into the table, and once that is done, you will get a print statement saying that Mara is completed, and after that it will say the job is completed. Alright, so it's pulling data from Mara, ready to proceed, and then once it starts picking up the records, it will be in proceed, and once it is done, it will go to stop state. Alright, so it's extracted 16,952 records. Now if you go to your trace, it says Mara is completed. This is a print statement that we gave in the job right after your Mara Dataflow, and this says this is done. Now you want to execute Marcy because Mara is already done. You don't want to re-execute Mara. So refer back to the example that we spoke in the beginning of the class, that you don't want to extract every time you run the job. You just need to complete your extraction once, and then you go to validation, and then you go to your loading. So I'm setting this Mara to no and Marcy to y and join to no, and run your job. So now you see the print statement, Mara is not executed because it checked the condition and the condition is not satisfied. It went to the else part. In the else part, you have this print statement saying that Mara not executed. Alright, so it printed that statement, and it went to the next conditional, which is Marcy. Right, you don't see any data flow Mara here. It directly went to Marcy, and now it is extracting data from Marcy. Right, it's in the proceed stage. Then once the record collection is done, it will go to stop. Somewhere around 25,000 odd records should be there. Right, so yeah, 26,909 records. We can run, Rehan, but yeah, we can run all the three conditionals at once, but sometimes, yeah, that is what I'm trying to tell here. Right, let us say you have a job where you want to extract data from 10 different tables, then you want to validate them, then you want to load them. Now, if you want to run the entire job together, put all conditionals to Y and run the job, and the entire job will run. So probably this will take some 30 minutes or 40 minutes. But if you want to improve the performance and the extraction is already done by some other job, you don't want to rerun it, so you can skip this part and go for validation and loading with the help of this controlled execution of the job. Alright, did I answer your question, Rehan? Yeah, thank you. Now this is done, and now if you go to the job, it did not go to the join, but it successfully completed the job. Now you want to go and execute only join. Now you set this to N and set this to Y. Yes, Rehan, correct. So execute your job. And now it should not go for Mara and Marcy, it should directly go to join. That's what it did. And now if you look at this, it's joined between some 16,000 records and 26,000 records, and it just happened in a fraction of a second, because now both your source tables are in your database tables, and it is a database to database extraction. So this one took a very less time, right? From database to database, you're trying to join two different tables and post it into this one. So it just took 0 seconds practically, because if you can go and look at the log, that is the time taken for one second. Yeah, so this is the join part where it started in 156.36 and it ended at 156.36, which is practically within 0 seconds it loaded the data. So that fast and accurate this data services system will work. And yeah, this is how we will use condition scripts and global variables to perform the controlled execution of the job. So this is a scenario where you, yeah.
Yeah, why can't we run 3 jobs at a time, one by one? If it is true, then run, else then run, else then run, instead of running 3 jobs at a time.
Sorry? I did not get your question. Can you repeat that, Chandra?
Instead of changing the code, why can't we run the 3 jobs at a time? Like the condition Mara is true, then execute condition. If it is not, then directly execute second condition. If it is not, then directly execute third condition. Is it possible?
Yeah, we can set those values, saying that, okay, now I'm giving the values here, right? So here if I am setting this to N, okay, Y, and end of this job, I can call the global variable and set it to N, saying that $GV underscore, Marcy equal to Y. Then from here it will go and pick Marcy. Right? There's no need for you to change the initial script because you're hard coding the value here. So it will go and execute Marcy. But again, if you want to, change the job, so if it is a one-time job that you're running, there is no need to do this. But let us say you want to change the job quite often and you want to choose like, this is 3 tables extraction. This is not the right scenario, but if you go to the Excel look at this. This is the right scenario that we are talking about. So I have some 15 tables that I need to extract, right? So I extracted and staged that. And this is a part of my single job material master. Now I want to perform a validation. So let us say I did some validations, some 10 validations on the data. I showed the data to the business and I should not load it. So I have to control my job only till here. Now I showed this output to the business and they said, like, do correction on this 7 business rules and add another 5 business rules. Now I don't need to start from the scratch, right? Extracting the data and then going to the validation. Right? I can just go and run only the validation n number of times, repeat only this validation process without breaking my job design. I can just go and validate this and tell or show the output to the data owner until he is satisfied. I can do this process, and once this is done, I can control these two and just run this part. Now I'm not going to change or touch my job design. I'm just keeping it like that, and I'm just executing whatever the part that I need. Now the business says that now, okay, you're done this part. In the last 5 days there are few more records. You just run the extraction part one more time. So then you go and do an extraction part without executing this, right? If you want to do any such activities, this is one scenario, but going forward when you start working on the projects, and there will be hundreds of scenarios where you will be using this conditional scripts and global variables. Yes, Chandra, go ahead.
You know Telugu?
Yes, go ahead. Yeah, చెప్పండి.
మనకి ఇక్కడ కండిషన్ 1 ఇచ్చారు కదా, కండిషన్ 1 కరెక్ట్ అయితే అది ఎగ్జిక్యూట్ అవుతుంది, కండిషన్ రాంగ్ అయితే ఆటోమేటిక్ గా అది ఎగ్జిక్యూట్ అవ్వదు, సెకండ్ ఎగ్జిక్యూట్ అవుతుంది కదా. అప్పుడు ఎట్ ఏ టైం 3 జాబ్స్ రన్ అవ్వవు కదా, సింగిల్ జాబ్ రన్ అవుతుంది కదా.
Yeah, so if you're just to put it in
ఎస్ అయితే కండిషన్ అది డేటా ఫ్లో ఎగ్జిక్యూట్ అవుతుంది, లేదంటే నెక్స్ట్ కండిషన్ వెళ్తుంది కదా.
Yeah, so it will go to the else first. First it will go to the else, and if you want to keep a second data flow here, you can go and put another data flow saying that if that is not correct, then go and execute. So we use this scenario in a full and delta mechanism. So if the full load is equal to y, execute this, and delta load is equal to y, full load is not equal to y, which means delta is equal to y, then you go and execute this. So this is a switch scenario that we generally use. Yes, but you can't use 3 flows in one single conditional. Okay. So it depends, because if you need it, you can use it. If you don't need it and you just want, let us say now this is my data flow job and DF Mara, this is a full load, and I want to apply a delta mechanism. So I just replicate this and I call it as delta, right? So I just drag it into this one. Now I'll apply a timestamp logic here, saying that okay, this last timestamp should not be here, or if there is a flag saying that this is the delta indicator. So let us say there is one. Let us assume that this is a flag column. So I want to, if I'm marking those columns with y, if it is a delta record, then get this one and say this is equal to, alright, so delta indicator is equal to y. So now if it is a full load, what will happen? My job will go and execute this, and if it is not a full load, then it will go and execute this part, right? And then we will change the print statement saying that the delta load is executed, or this will have print statement saying that the full load is executed. So this will tell us like how do you control your job without modifying it. If I don't have this conditional scripts and global variables, right, I need to have 2 separate jobs, one job to run my full load and then the other job to run my delta and then do the validation and enrichment. Now if I have this conditional scripts and global variables within the same job, I can choose which one to execute, either that is a full load or a delta load. Then I can complete that and continue with my validation and enrichment. So this is the advantage. You just need to, it is not applicable in every scenario. You just need to understand when exactly you can call it, and if you have a requirement that you have to run all the three things in one, you can go ahead and run it. Or if you want to apply some conditional saying that if this is X, then run this, and once it is run, update X to Y, and if it is Y, then run the second one. You can go and set those kind of a loop statements, right? So you go and do this. If it is X, if this is Y, then go and run this data flow, and once this is done, set this Mara is equal to Z, right? And in the second one, call the same conditional if Mara is equal to Z. Since it is a varchar, it will take any value. If Mara is equal to Z, execute this. If Mara is not equal to Z, go and execute this. Right? So you can set these values that way. Right, Chandra, did I answer your question, or at least it was close?
Yes, thank you.
Okay, yeah, thanks. So that is about condition scripts and global variables. So to do a quick recall on all the topics that we discussed today, we did conditions, scripts, global variables, reusability, replication, joining using query transformation, and performance. Like instead of creating multiple jobs, you can do everything in single job. This is one good way you can optimize your code, keep it simple, and then you can create your jobs, keep it simple, and do multiple activities in one single job. Alright, so this is about condition scripts and global variables, and I request you guys to practice all these scenarios on the system. Definitely you will get a lot of hiccups, I'm expecting, because that is where you actually look in more in details to the subject and learn it pretty good. So any questions on these things that we discussed today? Please go ahead and ask your questions. So Rehan, is this clear to you? Because this was your question. You wanted to understand this properly. So was I able to put enough light on this, Rehan? Rehan, I guess you are on mute and you are talking. If you can unmute yourself, yeah. Yeah, please practice on the system and let me know if you have any questions, Rehan. Right, that's wonderful. So Vandana, you had any question? You are trying to ask some.
So this scenario, like this scenario, after doing the join condition, we got some output. Like for example, if the client, the business scenario, if they want to dump the data in like couple other databases like HANA, if they have some other SQL Server box, can we able to use those data stores also in the same?
Yeah, you can create some another table and go and pick your HANA data store, and you just connect it to that one. And so with one data flow, you can post it into multiple databases. You can do that.
Like the scripts also reusable, like in between the projects, or if they are specific to one project?
No, specific. So scripts are specific to the jobs, right? They're not reusable because you cannot replicate a script, or you cannot find it in your local object library. Generally, the things that you find in your local object library, you can go and replicate them. Your workflows, your data flows, your files, you can go and replicate them, but not your scripts. You don't see that. You create a script specific to your job.
Okay.
If you want to copy, you can just copy and paste it in other job.
But global variable we can use in any project, right?
No, global variable is specific to job, right? Global. That is what I'm trying to say. Global variable, you create that at a job level. Now you see the variables here. Now let me go to the job. I did not create any variables at this job level. Now you go and see, you will see an empty screen, right? So these variables are specific to job. If you want to define something at your entire repository level so that you can call them across multiple jobs, like your inbound directory and outbound directory, that can be same for all your jobs, right? So in those cases, what you can do is you can go and set up your parameters, right? So this is where you can go and set your parameters, right? So I will go and create a new parameter and call it as, sorry, not the configuration. I'll go and create a parameter. I've been doing a lot of configurations these days, so. Alright, so you just click on here, double click on this one and give $. So it is like $$ for your parameters. Now give a path, C:, XYZ, ABC, right? You give the path. And now click on OK and your parameter will be saved. Now you go to your job and if you want to call your parameter, right? I'm just showing it in the script, but $, right? You have this, and if you want to cross check this one, once again, home, delete. Print this one, set all this 3 to no. Okay, once again. So there's a different way in which we have to call this. I keep forgetting that. Okay, I think I'm running into some syntax issues. Yeah, but you can see this print statement saying the value, right? So I haven't called it in my this one. I just gave the value, but I defined it in the parameters. So you can just print it, or if you are trying to use any flat files from the inbound, so you can just go and this is my source. So instead of passing the path here, you can directly click on this drop down and you will see this parameter which will actually give you or have the path mapped into it. So this is how you call the parameters. That is a quick intro to this. And there's a question from Anita. Can we have similar intro? Yeah. Then what we write in the scripts are SQL. Yeah. So the things that we write in the scripts are basic SQL statements, Rehan, so that the system will understand them when it executes. Any more questions? Alright, so if you don't have any questions right now, you can practice all the scenarios this weekend, and you can get back to, I'm expecting more and more questions on the Wednesday because I'm expecting you guys to work on the system and get into more issues. When I have sent you a mail CCing you with the server guy, you just write a mail to them and ask them to provide you a service, and they can give you all the details that you are asking for.
Sure, thank you.
Yeah. Alright guys, I appreciate your time and patience, and thanks for joining today's session. Have a wonderful weekend ahead and practice all the scenarios, and we will see you back on Monday evening US time, and which is Tuesday morning Indian time. Right, till then, take care. Bye.
Thank you, Rakesh.
Yeah, thanks. Bye.